The objective of the lesson is I can find complex and irrational roots of a polynomial function. So there's no new vocab. There's really just solving them. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that because you'll see what I mean by this. This is just to give you more practice with polynomials that have complex roots or irrational roots. So this is 18x to the fourth. So we need two numbers that multiply to 18 and add to -9. So that's going to be -6 and -3. So we can separate this into two binomials with x squared as the leading term because we have x to the fourth. So we can divide that into two. So we're going to have -6 and -3. So we're going to have x squared minus 6, x squared minus 3. And so we have 0 equals this. So x squared minus 6 equals 0, or x squared minus 3 equals 0. So we have x squared is 6, x squared is 3. So x is plus or minus the square root of 6, or x is plus or minus the square root of 3. All right, so here we have 4x to the fourth power minus 33x squared plus 8 equals f of x. So we're going to multiply 4 and 8 together, and that's 32x to the fourth. So we need two numbers that multiply to 32 and add to -33. So that's going to be -32 and -1. By the way, if you hear snoring, that's Ruby. So we have 0 equals 4x to the fourth minus x squared, because this is going to be minus x squared minus 32x squared. This is just the -33x squared, and then we have plus 8. So then we're going to factor out an x squared here, and we'll have 4x squared minus 1. And then we're going to factor out an 8, and we'll have 4x squared minus 1 again. So we'll have 4x squared minus 1 times x squared minus 8. So 4x squared will factor to 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 1. And then x squared minus 8 will stay the same, and all this will equal 0. So then we just set each factor equal to 0. So we have 2x minus 1 equals 0. And we have 2x plus 1 equals 0. So x is plus or minus 1/2. And then we have x squared minus 8 equals 0. So x is plus or minus square root of 8. Here we have f of x equals 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 24x minus 60. So we'll have 0 equals this. Then we're going to factor by grouping. Whenever you have a polynomial of degree 4, I would try to factor by grouping, especially if you can write it in parentheses like this. So we're first going to factor out an x squared. So this will be 2x plus 5. And then we can factor out we want to make the 24 the same as the 2. So that should tell you to make this 12, because 24 divided by 12 is going to be 2. So that's 2x plus 5. So then we have x squared minus 12 times 2x plus 5 equals 0. So we set them both equal to 0. X squared minus 12 equals 0. We add 12. We have x squared equals 12. Now we take the square root of both sides. And we have x equals plus or minus square root of 12. Then we have 2x plus 5 equals 0. So 2x equals -5. So x equals -5/2. These are your answers. Here we have x to the fourth minus 4x squared minus 12 equals f of x. So we're going to set this equal to 0. And it'll be x to the fourth minus 4x squared minus 12. So we'll need two numbers that multiply to -12 and add to -4, which will be -6 and 2. So we'll factor this as two parentheses with an x squared in each of them. And we'll have -6 and -2. Then we set them both equal to 0. We add 6 to both sides. We add 2 to both sides. We get x squared equals 6. X squared equals 2. So we take the square root of both sides, and we get x is plus or minus square root of 2, or plus or minus square root of 6. Here we have 4x to the fourth plus 31x squared minus 8. So we need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 32 and add to 31. So it's going to be positive 32 and negative 1. So we rewrite this as 4x squared, 4x to the fourth plus 32x squared minus x squared minus 8. So we're going to factor out a 4x squared, and this will be x squared plus 8. And then we're going to factor out a 1, and this will be x squared plus 8. So this will be 4x squared minus 1 times x squared plus 8. And in this situation, we set them both equal to 0, and the 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. That's going to be 4x squared equals 1. So that's going to be x squared is 1/4. Oh, I'm already writing the answer. X is plus or minus 1/2. And then the x squared plus 8, that's going to be x squared equals negative 8. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. We get x equals the square root of negative 8. So that's going to be x is I square root of 8. So these are your two options, or four options. And sorry, it's plus or minus I square root of 8. Here we have x squared, x to the fourth minus 16 equals f of x. So we set this equal to 0. Take the difference of two squares. We get x squared minus 4 times x squared plus 4. Then we get x minus 2 times x plus 2. And then this is x squared plus 4. And then this whole thing equals 0. We set them each equal to 0. We get x minus 2 equals 0. So x is 2. We have x plus 2 equals 0. So x is negative 2. And we have x squared plus 4 equals 0. So we have x squared equals negative 4. We take the square root of both sides. We get x equals plus or minus 2i. So our final answers are plus or minus 2, plus or minus 2i. Here we have f of x equals negative 2x to the third power minus 16. So we're going to go ahead and set this equal to 0. We get negative 2x cubed minus 16. We add 16 to both sides. We get negative 2x cubed equals 16. We get we divide both sides by negative 2. We get x cubed equals negative 8. And then we take the cube root of both sides, and we get x equals negative 2. And that's because negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 will be 4 times negative 2, which is negative 8. After this lesson, you can find roots of polynomial equations that are complex or irrational.